Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays. I have an awesome panel today. I cannot wait to get into our topic. We were just talking about, we had done something fairly similar a couple of years ago, and about the do's and don'ts of starting a beverage brand. And even 2 years ago, our environment looked completely different than it does today. So I think we have a lot of really interesting things to cover today. So Ben, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ben Salisbury. I'm the founder and president of Salisbury Creative Group. We are a strategic sales consulting firm serving wineries and distilleries all around the world.
Gary?
Yeah, Gary Schneidkraut, founder of Beverage Alcohol Consultants, helping with commercial strategy, route to market, distributor advocacy for spirits, RTD, wine, beer companies, and background in distributor execution and supplier strategy. So happy to be here.
All right. Caitlin?
Hi, Jesse. Thanks for having us. Caitlin Lubell, founder and Chief Connection Officer at Beverages. We are a beverage industry recruiting agency. We cover admin to C-suite across the U.S., and our whole team is from the biz. So we're all from the industry.
Yeah, where to start? You know, this is a pretty big topic, I think. Obviously, since COVID kind of erupted into our world of several thousands of beverage options. And, you know, it's funny because it's sort of one of these things where you're having a conversation with somebody and you go, "Oh, you mean that was pre-COVID?" And you're like, yeah, because the world is different, right? And we just continue to evolve with, you know, all the things that are going on around the world. So it's interesting, you know, how everything's going to play out. And when gas goes up, that's a sore subject for people because their income gets eaten up by that, you know, as they travel to and from work. Should we start with the do's or should we start with the don'ts?
I think, and Ben and I touched on this a while back. When people say, I'm going to launch an alcohol brand, the first question we ask is why? And it's not to be contrarian or combative. You know, I got Bar Convent Berlin. Anyone who said, I want to, be in the US. Okay, why? Well, it's the US. It's great consumer, but do you understand the intricacies that go into operating when every state has different legalities, the costs of operating? So I think, for the do's, just have a good answer for why. I think a lot of folks...
It starts there, yeah.
Yes. I mean, a lot of folks entered the industry thinking, hey, it'll be cool and sexy to own an alcohol brand. This will be fun. But look, the industry is very saturated and the consumer behavior has changed immensely in the past 6 years or so. So I think just making sure that you've just answer the why as far as for the consumer, does it make sense? And for you personally, are you in a position to truly launch and run and grow a brand?
Yeah, I think that people, you know, what happened in 2020 was that a lot of people lost their jobs, right? And people's entrepreneurial bone got poked because they had to. You know, it was like, okay, I lost my job. I need an income. What am I going to do? Let me do that passion project I've always wanted to do. Right. And I think it's wonderful. I relaunched Beverages after the pandemic. I think it's great, but I think that the learning curve when you're not from the industry and the amount of money that it takes to do business in the industry is something
intense.
That's definitely really intense and something that people don't always think about ahead of time. They don't know. Like Gary said, it looks fun, you know. Well,
it looks fun.
There's a lot more to it.
I'd love the stats on how many new brands are making it that weren't from the industry, of owners that are not from the industry, because we all know the answer is no, we're not going to launch a brand. No, we're not going to create something.
Yeah.
Because it's just so hard.
It's so hard.
Another way to state this do that we're talking about is have a full understanding of what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short. They don't really understand it's not enough to have a great product. People are so focused on this idea they have for a product or a brand, but they don't take it all the way through to see what it's going to take to bring it to life. So just having a realistic expectation of just how difficult it's going to be and what it's going to take will go along. When I have a new founder, entrepreneur come to me and ask for my help when they have an idea for a brand, I do my best to talk them out of it, only because it's the kindest thing that I can do. Even if they have a lot of money, they probably don't want to part with all that money. You know, the old expression, I mean, this is expression that's decades old, but the best way to make a small fortune in the wine business is to start with a large fortune. That's even more true today. So
Yeah.
it's the kind thing to do to try to talk somebody out of it until you're 100% sure they understand what they're getting themselves into.
And Ben, I think we share that same attitude and sentiment and approach. I was just speaking to a prospective brand earlier today, and I'm asking him questions and kind of just pushing back on his approach, on-prem versus off-prem, his pricing, his margins. And I said, he said to me, he goes, well, why don't you start a brand? And I said, you literally just spent 10 minutes telling me about how much risk you're taking and how it's taken 5 years just to get from ideation to shelf. No, personally, I think the value I bring is that I've worked with so many different companies in wine, spirits, RTD, beer, pre-launch to emerging, that I know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
I think is one part of it. And also, as an advisor, I can help the brands that come to me because I've seen what works, what doesn't work, what's realistic if someone has certain resources. But yeah, it's not trying to talk them out of it because you want to crush their dreams. I think in part it's almost a fiduciary duty to not just nod your head and cash their checks as a
Yeah.
consultant,
Agreed.
to push back. And I said to this gentleman, I said, look, my first thing is I audit the brand. I want to see your deck, your forecast, your current sales, and I redline the heck out of it. And I said, but if I redline something and you have a good response for it, well, Gary, we did this approach because I say, oh, all right, good point, moving on. So it's not to just nitpick. I think being passionate about the industry, as all of us are, we want, everyone to succeed. And it's kind of tough seeing when it's an oversaturated market and a lot of brands are not even being acquired at this point. They're having to close up shop.
Yeah. I think one of the other dues that is not done as much as I would like to see is, I come from sales, and one of the things that we did, you go into an account and you look for the opportunities, right? And I think that a lot of people a little too often create brands for them that they want instead of
Yes.
looking for the opportunities in the market. Where are there holes? I mean, I used to work for Washington State Winery. So you go in and you see all the wines of California. There you go. You're looking for the opportunities, but you're not creating a brand for yourself. If you want to sell it and make money, you need to create the brand for the market. So where are the opportunities? Where's the growth potential? Launching a product in a very oversaturated category because you just love it just might not be the most beneficial for you financially. I mean, to have
Yeah.
success, right? Ben,
And,
you've said that
one of
before too. I know.
one of the fastest growing segments is THC and CBD, right? But now with this bill that got slipped in when the government reopened last November, all of that is in the air. So you, even as a brand owner, why would you want to do that? I mean, Willie's just got $15 million in investment for some new stuff that they're going to be pushing out. That Willie's Remedy is kind of on a playing field all on its own. It sold $80 million worth I think it was 400,000 cases, and they launched in April of last year. So,
Wow.
that's a powerhouse
Bravo to
brand
them.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as a brand owner, like, I don't think I would try that. I don't think I'd try that right now.
Something else you have to consider if you're thinking of launching a new brand is if there's white space out there, you can bet that tens of millions of dollars are being deployed to find it by the world's biggest beverage companies. And I tell clients all the time, I'm like, so you think there's an opportunity for this product in this category? Did it ever occur to you that the reason there isn't a product there is because there's no market for it? That somebody has already figured out that there's no market. If there was a market, it was a glaring hole in the market. A very big global beverage company would have spotted it and filled it by now. So it's this white space that you think you're filling is not really, often it's not a real thing. There's no real white space. There's a certain reason why certain products don't exist, because there's no demand for it.
Yeah.
Demand, but also I think a brand being the right fit for the supplier. I think a lot of the the bigger players in spirits, an analogy that was used once that I really liked was let's say Diageo. They're phenomenal at flying jumbo jets, 747s. But if you put them in a private jet, might not be as great. And private jet meaning an emerging brand, something that doesn't currently have a footprint. So, I mean, some founders and the leaders they bring in are quite savvy. And for me, it's not like Ben, you said, it's more than just having a good product. I'm very big into numbers and analytics. If you can make a business case based on data and analytics, in addition to trends with geography, demographic, I think it's worth pursuing, just understanding what risk you're undertaking. But I think a really big issue that would help to find the white space, but then take advantage is, I like to say, know what you don't know and surround yourself with people who do. And that could be consumer insights. That could be, folks coming from an adjacent, area of CPG. I mean, in ALC, I think that there should be more overlap of, I used to say wine companies should probably employ more beer marketers. I think that they're clever, they create occasions, but yeah, I mean, look, the white space is there for a reason, but I also think that it it is more opportunity. And yeah, I mean, look, we'll see. We'll see.
Listen, I think another do is I'm going to plug both of you guys right now. Do just piggyback on what you're saying. Do enlist in the Garys and the Bens and the Boozbas of the world to help you, because even if you're from the industry, I mean, if you're, it's really important to, like you said, surround yourself with the right people, talk to people, make sure that you really are paying attention to what's going on here and now. Maybe you've been out of the industry for a few years, or maybe you're totally new to the industry, and it's really okay, but you got to enlist the right people, and you really, research and development is so important. I mean, to do your real research, talk to a lot of people, and get the proper guidance rather than just kind of jumping off the cliff. I mean, I respect the jumping off the cliff. Trust me, I'm an entrepreneur, but you also have to do your research, right?
Well, and we got to think about too, who's our audience? Because with
Yeah.
every generation, that audience changes ever so slightly or not, right? And the other thing that is a huge part of our community now is non-alcoholic. Beers are crushing it. Right? You got all kinds of non-alcoholic opportunities. I think the biggest problem with them are the sugar. They got to get less sugar. And I think with the GLP-1s is no joke. My wife, Loanna, just found a video yesterday of a doctor. Do you guys remember the plastic surgeons, Massif and
Yeah.
Brow?
There were I'll admit I watch E and Bravo occasionally.
Okay.
Wasn't one of
Well,
those shows, like, it was the husband of a Real Housewife, I think, was one of the
I think
partners?
so. Yeah, I think so. But anyway, he was interviewed on this podcast, and he got his certification in whatever GLP-1, whatever avenue that means you need to go and get whatever. He did. He got obsessed with it. And now they're saying there's all these health benefits with it. And there's other things that are going to, that go with it, like creatine, 3 to 5 grams a day helps your brain activity, fights dementia, and all these different things. And I think that with the GLP-1, people are drinking less. They don't want to eat as much. They don't want to drink as much, but it's got so many more health benefits to it than we even know today, that it's going to just keep going. And I think that is definitely something to consider.
Well, and Gary and I just went to the All Bev Expo, and you were talking about cannabis bevs. First of all, they weren't scared. They were moving forward, right, Gary? Like, I didn't feel like they were like, oh, we don't know what's going to happen. No, they were just rocking and rolling. And a lot of them were also like, hey, athletes love this. And, there's a really big category for it because, people who don't want that alcohol intake, but still want to get that buzz, these kava drinks and these cannabis and hemp and THC, there's definitely growing, I think, want for it from the consumer perspective.
Yeah, no, Caitlin, you're right. And Alt Bev Expo was super fascinating because it was, THC, it was mushrooms, so reishi and lion's mane, adaptogens, nootropics, then,
So
non-alc options. And alcohol is not going anywhere. It's just it's not. And I like the term modern alcohol because as an industry, rather than telling people what they should like, I think our industry has been moving toward listening to consumers and trying to provide what they'd like. But yeah, there was maybe one person who I was on a panel with who she's an incredibly successful distributor with a lot of THC brands under their umbrella. And she said, we're going to kind of slow things down as far as purchasing new inventory come summer, work through it and see what's happening as we get closer to that deadline. But the current administration, I mean, I was just at the Discus conference and the joke was, hey, remember exactly 1 year ago, we were all so concerned about tariffs because we didn't know, will he, won't he, how much? We're in the same exact place. So there's a lot of waffling in, not to get political, but I just think that there's a lot of back and forth and will he, won't he? And I think THC is maybe calling the bluff and saying, look, we're going to keep going. We're not just going to fold or slow down. We're going to build the momentum. And probably by November, when we're supposed to have that decision, or we're supposed to reformulate, there's going to be extensions put into place, or it's going to be state by state. I think folks are just kind of rolling with it.
Well, what's interesting is that the Trump administration actually filed for the THC to be, I'm terrible at remembering.
decriminalized or to
Yeah,
section
level
one.
3 instead of level
Right.
1 so that they could actually start
Right.
doing research on it, and then that other thing just kinda slipped in there, so it's kinda weird. It's was it meant to be on purpose or not? I don't know the answer to that, but I would think that a president is the way he thinks is in money, that he wouldn't kill it. Like, I just can't imagine that he would be a part of killing something that's just so big and such a big part of our economy now. And I would think that even Congress wouldn't want to do that. Now, I think we're all of us, even in the industry, they want regulation, and the beverages are already regulated so heavy. They go through so many checks and balances before they even can get off out of the factory, that a lot of what I'm finding out is through guests that I've had on the show is that they're working through their state governments to get the beverages separated from the gummies and the more unregulated parts of the industry, because we already have the beer and liquor system where we ID a convenience store. And so that's kind of the angle that we're looking at, because I don't think, since there's no chatter from anybody from Congress, at least you can reach out to your state's representatives and get that definition. Hopefully that'll help. I feel more confident getting something done at a state level than our national level.
Well, and the wine and spirits wholesalers and national beer wholesalers, both organizations at their conferences over the past few months, opening session was very much we welcome these intoxicating non-alcoholic adult beverages into our portfolio. We want to welcome them. And I don't know if it's just, hey, look, they've taken such a bite out of our revenue. If we can't feed them, have them join us, be part of it. Or if this is just how things are evolving, as opposed to, you see, I mean, Reyes was a beer house and, essentially taking over, what was the latest number of RNDC markets they're getting?
Another 5,
I
so like
think.
12.
Right. So Reyes is going to be total beverage alcohol. And Southern, in response, had bought the Anheuser-Busch distribution in Metro New York. So total beverage alcohol. It's not as siloed. And
Why?
I think they will be rebranding all these organization names to be adult beverage as opposed to alcohol, wine, spirits, beer.
And wine and spirits isn't going anywhere. And, I still consume wine and spirits and, people are still drinking booze for sure. But I think that there's also a time and a place for other categories, and our industry can still profit on those categories. The states can still profit on those categories. So I think, that it's some people are kind of like, Stop talking about that. It's hurting wine and spirits. And it's like, well, but also these wine companies are coming out with a non-alc wine, and there's space for it all. I think it's just a different type of product. But, I think lifers are, we're still drinking. Yeah, I mean, we're still going out and having our Negronis and our beautiful glasses of, you know, of wine. But I think that it's an emerging category that is a good thing for entrepreneurs and for the industry to be looking at and saying, how can we incorporate this so our salespeople still make money and the distributors still make money in the States, while, instead of fighting it, like one of you guys said, join us and make it work.
Having guests on and listening to these brand owners talk about their brands, the whys, the things, and all the things in distribution, I find it the most successful ones, I feel like, are really good at operations. It is so
Yeah.
important to be so efficient in working with data and understanding your velocity, understanding your samples to a yes response, and understanding the math behind it, because that is so important to taking that data and going, hey, state over here, look what we've done, and we can do that for you too. And
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are out there doing that exact thing, but I would say that if you want to get in the good graces and get trust built by a distributor, that's the way you do it. And I just find that, it's obviously my wheelhouse, but I have also seen where people are building a brand within a community, one community at a time. That's kind of like how beer houses have always functioned. They're very good at merchandising. They're very good at promotions. They're very good at building communities. And you've seen a lot of that happen too with some of these smaller brands. And I think that's really important to understand where your brand fits in that community and how you want to get that liquid to lips. Gary, you mentioned an occasion. I think it's also interesting for brands to think about what's the occasion that you're going to be fulfilling. Is it non-alc? Is it alc? Is it, I just want to be on premise in these restaurants. You know what I mean? I think you have to think of it as an occasion these days.
Yeah, and piggybacking off what you were saying, it's, you said by community and being very focused. I will live and die by the approach: go an inch wide and a mile deep. Don't try to do everything and be everything to everyone. Figure out who your customer is and start in a very sort of controlled amount of markets or geography. And you figure out what works, what doesn't work. Something might come to show that, oh my God, it turns out we're crushing it with, the 40 to 60-year-old female demographic. We didn't intend on it, but they connect to our branding. And so to tweak it that way and then expand based on your learnings in a repeatable model.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you're getting started, go to your local liquor stores and start doing demos and get feedback. Because if people aren't coming back and buying it, you don't have a very good product. So yeah, start small, get to your second liquor store.
And
Oh, it takes time.
and analytics and having the data to build the strategy, you can't argue with numbers. And you're right, velocity is really what's important. And the hypothetical people throw out there is, well, would you rather have 5 accounts that have you on the menu and are going through X amount of cases a week, or would you rather be in 50 accounts where you're on the back bar, but maybe they're not reordering? And that's, look, it's up to the founder or the brand leaders, but in my opinion, to really own 5 accounts and have them bought in. And when I say own, I just mean like they're bought in, they believe in the brand, are by their own volition are recommending the brand to customers. That's what you need. And I think one of the biggest drivers in velocity for on-premise is bartenders. They make a recommendation, or I love asking bartenders, what do you recommend, or what can you make with this? But to be more strategic as opposed to what was the term we used to use? Pray and spray.
Yeah.
Get the pods, get the distribution, but you want
Yeah.
the right pods. You want to place your product where it is going to grow organically. There's going to be reorder, and people are going to really kind of get to know the brand and the brand story.
One of the things that I like to do for clients is review their investor pitch deck to make sure it's not missing anything important. And this is a quick side note. What investors look for and what distributor and retailers look for aren't always the same thing. So so that's one of the things I caution founders on is when you're preparing your investor pitch decks, keep in mind who your audience is, because investors are very, or at least they usually are, enamored by broad distribution. They love to see how many store doors you've gotten into this year and how many you're going to get into next year. They're really focusing on broad or breadth of distribution. But that worked really well up until about 8-9 years ago. Now, the more important metric, as you all have said, is velocity. Is the sell-through there? Is the reorder rate? Are the reorder rates there? That's far more important than how many stores you're in. And the corollary to this is more states does not equal more sales. A lot of the founders who are pitching to investors have a schedule showing, this year we're going to start in this state, then we're going to add these 3 states, then we're going to add these 3 states. That's the wrong way of looking at it. What I would rather see as an investor is the traction of your home market first, because if you don't have traction in your home market, getting into more states isn't going to make much difference. That used to work. And I think that really is a really important point. What used to work no longer works or no longer works as well. And there are a lot of people in denial about that. There are a lot of people trying to build a brand today like you would have built it 10 years ago or
Bravo.
And that's a big mistake. It's just too crowded and the distributors don't have the bandwidth they used to. So you're better off starting small, gaining traction, and building from a success story instead of just trying to see how broad you can reach into the market.
I had a friend tell me recently, you're talking yourself out of business. And I said, yeah, but when I talk to a brand and they want to hire people in 7 states, salespeople, I say, no, because, and she said, why are you doing that? Like, it's business for you. And I said, because you know what's going to happen? He's going to do it and then he's going to run out of money. And then all of a sudden, those 6 people I just hired are going to be out of a job in 10 months because the person ran out of money because they went too big, too fast. I think I know all 4 of us very much agree with this. And Ben, I know you preach it all the time, but I tell them, I'm like, pick 1 to 3 states. We'll hire you somebody, we'll dig in, get you some traction. And then exactly, you can show other states like, hey, look what we're doing. Now you want to bring us in. But I pull people back all the time. And I am talking myself out of business, but it's a long game here, right? And a
No, you're
brand is a
helping
long
them
game.
stay in the game a lot longer.
Exactly. It's really important to do that, I think.
And we talked about building a repeatable model, something that works based on your learnings. Caitlin, I fully agree with you that before you grow, like just really focus in. I think people overspend, they overexpand, but it's time to expand when you have a proof of concept. And that proof of concept is built in your home market, as Ben said. When you have really built that velocity and you find what's working, then it's not only does it make more sense for investors to know, all right, so my money's going towards, this state. Like, well, we have a proof of concept,
Yeah.
what we've done in this state, this city that's very similar to the one we're going to. Or I like to ask clients for their e-commerce data. I'm curious, where are you shipping to? Where are the bottles and where's your product going to?
That's smart.
Because, yeah, if you're shipping a ton to, let's say, we're sending a ton to Maryland. Okay, let's dig into that. And okay, so we've got this many, orders, etc. You can go into a distributor in Maryland and make it easier on yourself. And as opposed to just saying, hey, take a chance on me. Guess what, Mr. or Mrs. Distributor, our customers are already in your market. We've already built the brand awareness, the consumption. You taking us in is just going to help us grow and you profit from having our product.
Such a good point.
Yeah. And on to that, I had Rob Minucci from Talk House Encore this year, and he's the operations, kind of the inspiration of the operations comment I was making. And they figured out that if an account would only allow 1 case, just keep on moving. Don't leave a sample. Don't just keep on going, because they have figured out that the only way the brand makes it is if you put in 3 cases on the shelf. And it makes sense because I went and bought Total Wine the other day, and that section is really overwhelming. And it's there's so many colors and it's so flashy that if
Yeah.
there's not white noise, how do you stop? And it just makes sense to me to have some kind of a billboard for people to actually be able to focus on something. I mean, maybe people are so focused on a brand that when they're walking in there, they're looking for a brand, but when you're just sort of walking through, it's really overwhelming,
And
even with the
that's
THC and
rare.
CBD stuff.
That's rare these days. People like to try new things. Everybody has a very short attention span. People always want to try new things. I think once they find something they really like, they will go back to that as a foundation. Setting yourself apart is that's a really hard challenge, I think, that every brand deals with, right? How do we set ourselves apart? And every candidate.
Well, did anybody predict this three-tiered system to kind of crash the way it did? I mean, what is going on with R&DC? Does Reyes really need to do this?
Humpty Dumpty has had cracks for a long time. So, we've been talking about all the challenges of the industry for quite a few years now. And I think it's now just hitting the fan, right? And I don't know. Let's see what's going to happen.
What what have you seen in your consultancy and your clients when they come to you and they say, "Hey, I want to launch a brand." Do you tell them just do one SKU, do three SKUs, do five? Is it does it matter kind of what the category is? Like if you're doing a wine, do you need a shard and a cab? Or if you're doing a RTD, do you need like three flavors to expand that footprint?
Such a
What's the answer there?
Such a great question. And it does really matter. It does really vary by the category, right? But I love to tell the story of Yeti. If you go back to the early days of Yeti, the coolers,
Yeah.
they had one color, right? It was like a sky blue, and that was it. It wasn't until many years later that they introduced new colors, introduced new products. And now it seems like every day there's a new product. There's a great deal of wisdom to learn from that model. They wanted to build the brand and prove with a small set of SKUs first. After that, using line extension was the primary means for growth. You have to be able to save some gunpowder for growth later. So I think as a general rule, because it's so crowded, you're better off focusing on fewer SKUs than you are throwing a bunch of things against the wall to see what sticks. Now, the wine people have they have a different dilemma. It's often comes with the territory that you're going to be producing multiple SKUs of product, and that's fine. But you shouldn't be having multiple tiers of the same SKU. You just don't want to take on too many products at once because somebody has to execute that. It's much more difficult to execute a large portfolio than a small one.
And don't you think it dilutes also from its own brand? It's like, then how do you tell which one's the top seller when you have so many brands, right? It like dilutes the brand itself.
Dilution is a great term because you have a finite amount of time, finite amount of people, financial resources. Do you want to concentrate those resources towards a successful launch, or do you want to dilute it across a lot of markets and a lot of products? And so that's a really good point, Caitlin, is the dilution. That's the number one reason to stay focused. But really, focus applies across so many things, not just your portfolio and the size of your portfolio, but the markets that you're in and the channels that you're in and the consumers that you're purchasing. It's better off to focus and go deep instead of trying to go wide because it dilutes your efforts and your resources.
I think
And
that's entrepreneurship 101 though, right? Like when I was launching Booze Biz, I had all these different ideas. I wanted to do like a networking events and I wanted to do a mentor program and a wellness program and all this stuff. And all my advisors and coaches and mentors and stuff, they were like, focus, like pick one thing, dig into it. And I said, well, I really want to help people get jobs, right? And they're like, great. Focus on that. Then you can roll out some other things if you feel that you want to, but don't dilute the brand. People are going to say, what is Booze Biz then? Right. And so I think it's important with everything, with every entrepreneurial project, right?
I think in addition to just the public perception of the brand, if you think operationally, what goes into having multiple SKUs?
That too.
I mean, let's say you're an RTD and and Jesse, you had used the term one hero product. If you're doing 3, 4, 5 different flavors or SKUs or, a low proof, high proof, it's a lot more operationally as far as keeping track of you've got different inventory, you've got money tied up in inventory. If one flavor is not doing well because it just doesn't taste well, people don't love it, you're sitting on that product. I personally, I think, go with the hero SKU, do it well, really just execute the hell out of it, and then allow the market to tell you what they want to see.
Exactly.
To say, oh my God, I love product X. I wish they would also do this flavor. Okay, turn it into what M's did many years ago. We're going to add a new color, blue, pink, or purple. Like, that was a huge, huge successful campaign. Like, all right, tell us what flavor you want next. Tell us. I mean, because nowadays you got a lot of drinks going lower ABV for sessionable enjoyment, or the Cutwater Beatbox Buzzballs route where it's double digit ABV. Like, let your customers tell you what you want. But I think already trying to get an account to take one product in is tough. Why are you going to go in with 3 different SKUs, 5 different SKUs and say, so which ones would you like? Just focus and execute the task and the item at hand.
Yeah, didn't companies used to do, I haven't seen it a lot. You're making me think lately about like crowdsourcing and like focus groups and things like that, where they would bring in consumers and test products. Like I know my previous company, my wine and spirits company did that. And I don't hear about that anymore, actually. When I talk to emerging brands, I don't hear that they've done, focus groups or crowdsourcing. It's like, yeah, what do people want? Like Doritos, there's all these brands that do that, right? What's the next flavor and what do you want? And I don't know that people are, again, that's about like, look at the markets. Where's the need?
Those insights are really valuable beyond
Yeah.
just data and statistics. Having the insights and hearing from the consumers' mouths what they think of a product. I mean, I have a client who he loves as a founder. I love the founder led approach, but he sends like once a month, it's an email from the founder. So anyone who's ordered on ecom, he reaches out, shares some pictures of the new production run, thanks them for their business. And I said, has anyone left reviews? So what do you mean? I said, well, are people leaving reviews or submitting feedback? Oh, the top is really cool. It's on the cork is cool, but it breaks off easily, or it broke in the mail, or, product is cool. It's good. It's just too sweet. And he said, no, we don't really have a place for anyone to leave the reviews. So my suggestion was in his next founder email to say to everyone, we appreciate you. We'd love to hear your feedback so we can do even better. So our next, release can be something that you guys truly help shape. So if you leave a review at this link and use this promo code, you get free shipping on the next order. And that way you're receiving the feedback, you're able to pivot accordingly and make, learn what you might not know. Oh, we didn't know the ornament was breaking off the top. Hearing what people want, then they're getting a promo code. So they feel good because they're getting free shipping and they're reordering. So that's more velocity. And maybe they'll order bottles for, well, I have a bottle, but I got this promo code. My dad would love this. I'm going to order a bottle for him. But the data or just the value of what the consumer's feedback is, it's invaluable.
I mean, it's one of the reasons for store tastings, right? I always tell brands, you got to carve out a store tasting budget. There's too many brands right now. You have to let consumers taste it, or it's just going to sit on the shelf and collect dust. You have a new brand, you need a tasting budget, or you need to go and do it yourself. Stand in a store for 3 hours and get feedback in high traffic stores, but you have to do it. You can't just sell into a distributor and just walk away. It just doesn't work like that anymore.
Do
I think
folks
part of the branding too of a brand, back in the day, and Caitlin, you sold wine. Did you sell wine, Gary? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
I
You
sold
did?
a 190-page catalog at a distributor.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, wine is a story. It's a hand sell. It's an emotional connection to the winery or the winemaker or something in those lines. And I feel like a lot of these successful companies have really understood the storytelling behind it and are really doing a great job of telling the why, the founder story.
Yeah.
Julius Grant, he's from Mexico. So he created a single estate with multiple generations of family producers, and every vintage, as they call it, like wine, is
Mm.
from a different family. That's
Oh,
a
that's
great
nice.
story. Yeah, and it's additive free and all the things. And so those are kind of the things that are going to be, I think, separating you out from others, you know? And then I think is very important.
Story is essential, but it's not enough. Like a lot of other things when you're launching a brand, it's not enough to have a great product at a great price and a great package with a great story and a great provenance. That just gets you to the starting line. So while a great story is important and you need to have one, it's not going to carry the day as well as execution will. And I just want to follow up on a point that Caitlin just made. I'm not a big fan of spending a lot of money on store tastings, and I want to tell you why. I have two
Mm.
reasons for it. So just think about this. One is that the level of purchase intent at a tasting demo where somebody randomly walking up to your booth and trying a sample, they may or may not be shopping for that particular category at the time. Now, there's definitely value in liquid to lips, no question about it. It's just not very scalable. But the other thing is I would rather spend my time getting distribution where the velocity is built in, like getting it onto a shelf. And now I have to do all this work to get it to sell off the shelf. I'm not a fan of that approach. I would rather go somewhere where if I make a placement at this restaurant or bar, that placement generates 5 to 6 cases a week just by virtue of you being that low-end Chardonnay spot or the mid-level Chardonnay spot. So my advice to small brands is, yes, you need to get liquid to lips, but if you depend on it too much, you're going to run out of time and money. Make sure that you're like an investment portfolio. A good majority of your placements are at places where the velocity is already automatic. It's already built in. Just being on the shelf isn't going to be enough. That's why I love on-premise for certain new brands, because if you get a by the glass or you get it on a cocktail menu, you're going to have built-in momentum right out of the gate, whether you do anything or not. Now, you should still do staff training and all that.
Yeah.
I just want to caution people that there's a lot of things that are good to do, but the old saying, good is the enemy of the best. It often isn't enough to get where you want to go with the.
Yeah, I think it's just a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And let me say too, when I used to have a budget for store tastings, I went and trained the agency and I said, give me 7 people. I'm going to dig in. I'm going to teach them and train them so that they can say the name of the brand properly, understand what they're really selling, to the point where people would say to them, oh, do you work for the company? Which is like, okay, then you're doing a good job, right? And not standing there chewing gum or, just, do you want a taste of tequila? Like,
On the phone.
right, exactly. So I think it's important to do it the right way. And I agree, it's definitely only a piece to the puzzle. I mean, my most successful builds were sitting at the bar, talking to the bartenders, Gary, and, with my bottle of Torres brandy saying, here's my bottle, make me a drink, taste it, touch it, smell it, make me a cocktail. And I'd do a little mini staff training. And then I would go to the other end of the bar and do the same thing with the other bartender. And that's how 100%, I mean, brands are built on prem, right? And 100%, you get those ambassadors. That's a real ambassador, right? Now they've taken ownership of the brand. They're excited to sell the brand. And that's definitely where you're going to actually get the real business, 100%. So many people want to be in retail, but you can't just throw it on the shelf. I mean, New York, they don't even use shelf talkers. The stores are as big as somebody's kitchen when there's nothing you could do to help push it through except for the tastings. And that's why I did them all the time. I was like, what else am I going to do? A window or a tasting?
Do you
Certain
think
markets, right?
the rise of retail tastings, I mean, back in the day, my God, I'm old, but brands were built on premise. That's where you did liquid to lips. That was just,
Always.
That's true.
that was a rule. It wasn't even like a suggested route. And then you want people who enjoy the product at a restaurant or bar to go to a nearby liquor store and say, hey, do you guys carry? And then that's how it builds. But, we were talking earlier about occasion and just post-pandemic. I think that I wonder, has the rise in retail tastings come about because the suffering of the on-premise? I mean, just at the beginning of the pandemic, on-premise being shut down. But
Yeah.
to me, something that I've found myself repeating a lot is we've lost happy hour. And happy hour used to be an occasion, a built-in occasion to just adult life, where you communicate and you You bond together with your colleagues who during the day, Susan from accounting, she might be the meanest woman in the office, but then you go to the bar, you're drinking your beer, she lets you try her Negroni, you figure out, you learn with I mean, people working remote now, or, 2 or 3 days a week in office, and people not really going out to bars. Is we really trying to capture everyone's attention in off-prem? Which I think a recent statistic was the average American goes into a liquor store 1.5 times a year, which blew my mind because I'm there like 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wonder, where is that best place to capture attention from customers, or is it social media, digital marketing?
I think it's got to be a combination of all of it.
Yeah.
You can't lean too
Balance.
hard into one part of it, right? You have to, I don't know. Ben, what do you think of that? I'm curious to hear your, your response on that.
Well, this I do know. A lot of money is wasted trying to build a brand and build brand awareness when your ladder is up against the wrong house. Nowadays, it
Mm.
takes an awful lot of money to build a brand with advertising and social media. And social media, just a quick side note, is changing so rapidly. I mean, even just in the last 6 months. You probably remember the days if you had 1,000 friends on Facebook or 1,000 Instagram followers and you posted something to Facebook or Instagram, those 1,000 friends would see it on their feed. That's not the case anymore. You don't see what your friends are posting on the feed. You see what Meta wants you to see. Is all controlled by the algorithm. So, but yet the average brand is still operating as if, hey, when I post to my fans and followers, they're going to see it. No, they're not. It's real easy to overemphasize the impact of social media. Very, very easy to do. And then you find yourself spending time and money on creating content and posting. To what
Yeah.
effect?
It's a
To no
time
effect.
suck.
So this is another dimension of what we're talking about today. Building a brand, right? I'm using air quotes for those of you listening on the podcast. Building a brand is very different today than it used to be because it's just so crowded. It takes tens of millions of dollars to build brand awareness today. And so unless you've got a war chest for that, you need a different way. And back to something said earlier in this podcast, it's all about building your own audience. And one of the best vehicles for that is email. Email is first-party data that cannot be taken away from you. It's not subject to an algorithm at all. You control the messaging, you control the frequency, you control everything, which means you can also control the growth of your email list. I think email is one of the most underutilized mediums for growing a brand for startup brands because you can speak directly to your constituents anytime you want. And to those who say, well, email is dead, nobody likes email, that's just simply not true. What people don't like are crappy emails, promotional emails, in your face emails,
Yeah.
self-serving emails.
And every day, like you can't, you got to find the balance. Like if you email me every day, I'm unsubscribing.
You're gone.
The number one reason, not to go off on a big tangent, but the number one reason people unsubscribe from email lists is because they get too many crappy emails. You know what the number two reason is? They don't hear from brands often enough. And so that's really eye-opening. So if you use email not as a promotional bludgeon, but a way to build a relationship, authentic relationships at scale, now you've got a really powerful tool because it's cheap and you can measure the ROI with great precision. So I just think that the assortment of plays available to new brand is evolving literally daily, and you have to pay attention to what works and what doesn't so that you don't waste a lot of money. There's so many ways to waste money under the guise of brand awareness.
I
Yeah.
also think you can create experiences at a good value, which I mean, I remember the first time I got to go to Napa, I had been selling wine for years and it completely changed me. I mean, to see the grapes on the vines, to touch them, to talk with the winemaker, it was a complete game changer for me. And I know that one time we rented a boat and that was a little too pricey. We shouldn't have done that, but in hindsight, but we cruised around Manhattan with our distributor launching 3 new wines and they talked about it for years. And even just an intimate lunch with a winemaker where I had, senior leaders from the distributor going like, that was a moment that like I got to sit next to the winemaker and taste the wine with them and eat it with the food. And it was just, and it wasn't very costly. And we had probably 15 people and they talked about it for years. So I think there's a way also to create experiences. I think that's what Beatbox right? Like, and that's what Jägermeister used to do, the Jaeger music tours, right? And these were experiences and moments where you like took the brand into your heart somehow and had a memory of it. And you don't have to rent a boat. That was way too costly. But, you can do smaller, more intimate experiences that will, I think, have a high impact. I mean, I saw it firsthand. People got to meet Miguel Torres. They never forgot it. And they went out and sold the brand after meeting him.
There is one more distribution opportunity that Ben, you brought up when we had our call for this podcast, and that was creating a brand that's direct for chains under their blanketed sort of direct, like the Spirits Direct program for Total Wine. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what that strategy looks like?
Yeah, if you're a new brand and you haven't yet launched, you really want to put this into your assortment of possible tools in your toolbox. The Winery Direct and Spirits Direct play. So here's how it works. If you don't, let's take Texas, for example, and you're launching in New York or Florida. If you want to get into Texas in a big way and start getting revenue, you could approach one of the big chains on a Winery Direct or Spirits Direct deal where you cut out the traditional distributor, use the chain's clearing distributor to legally bring the goods in, and they'll put it in every one of their stores. They'll promote it in their flyer. They'll promote it on their website. They'll stack it on the floor. Because they make so much more profit than by cutting out the middleman. So if you're a small brand just starting out, Wine Direct and Spirits Direct could be a great way to bring immediate revenue into the operation without having to put somebody in the market or beat the street trying to get new distribution. So that's another example of this velocity that's already built in. Total Wine & More really perfected the Wine and Spirits Direct model, but that caused all of Total Wine's competitors to do likewise. And so go to a big major chain website and look at they have different names. Like ABC calls theirs Sourced and Certified. Goody Goody in Texas calls theirs Goody Direct. They even have these branded names for these programs. But I talked to a lot of people about this and have never even heard of it. So thank you for bringing that up, Jess. It's a great option for brand new brand. It'll get the revenue. It'll compress the time to revenue so much, and then you can work on, broad distribution in your home market. I have a quick story. I don't know, 10, maybe 9 years ago, I had a small family winery in Washington State that was literally about to go out of business if they didn't get some revenue soon. I taught them this Winery Direct thing. Their very first order was a full truckload of wine. It was $137,000, 1,100 cases of wine. Saved the company, saved their year. 6 months later, they ordered a second truckload. They didn't even know this was a thing. So I've seen this time and time again, and it's definitely worth looking into.
And I think if you're a spirit brand, something to consider is your size. Because if you want to play in Europe and UK, you got to have a 700 milliliter. If you want to if you're a retail brand, you have to have a 700. UK is supposed to be changing that, but the retail is still going to be 700. And one thing I would think is a advantage is you're smaller. It's less resources, and your pricing is going to be lower than anybody else on the shelf. And customers may or may not even realize your bottle's smaller. And so I think that's something to consider.
If you're sitting on inventory, especially if you're a smaller player, I had the same conversation with a brand I work with, and he has 750s. I said, how many bottles of the 750 are you sitting on? Like, are you close to needing more glass in which we can order 700s, or do you have a long way to go? Because to order new packaging when you're sitting on a bunch, or especially if you're sitting on 750s that have liquid in them that are sitting, it's a tough pill to swallow, and an unexpected cost that comes your way.
Yeah. I have a lot of clients that are just switching to the 700s just because why not? If it's allowed in the US, 700s are pretty much accepted everywhere. So I think it's something to consider. I know sometimes brands want to be that 1 liter size because they want to be the well. So, liters work too, but I think it's something that as you're starting a brand, you really need to consider on what you want for your brand long
I
term.
also think and Ben, when you and I spoke a few weeks ago, we kind of touched on it, how often we hear from brands that say, God, if only we had met a few months earlier, because they've already done their packaging or their labeling, or they're too far along. And Ben, you say it perfectly. Our goal is to help our clients avoid costly mistakes.
Yeah.
And oftentimes a costly mistake has been made and it's okay. Now let's stay calm. Let's evaluate the situation and, work our way out of this. But yeah, I mean, Jesse, as you saying, if you're a new brand, you're starting, there's so many things to consider that in the past you wouldn't have, or maybe you just didn't have the right eyes on it. Not, yes, just know what you don't know, surround yourself with people who do. And even if you don't acknowledge that, just asking for objective external perspectives, just to have the right eyes on it. I mean, you want to do it right from the start. So that's just, coming to mind. But yeah, package size is definitely.
I'm laughing in my head saying size matters, right? But it's so true because
Caitlin, come on, we're
I
adults here. My
no, and
goodness.
listen, let me tell you something. You know how many times I talk to brands that are super high end, like expensive brands, and they want to go into New York, and I'm like, "Are you doing a 6-pack or a 12-pack?" And they're like, "Well, we got 12-pack," and I'm like, "I sold in New York on the street, and you're an expensive brand. You got to do 6-packs. Other states, you might want to do 12-packs. I mean, you have to pay attention to the market that you're going into, but even the cans, RTDs, I mean, there's all different sizes of RTDs, and that makes a big difference. I mean, I remember launching multiple different RTDs in different sizes, and you see a difference in the sales. I mean, so it really does matter. And that's research and development again of your brand in your market, wherever you want to go.
And also in New York, having also spent many years selling for a distributor, think about storage space. It's
Exactly.
it's really tough to justify bringing in another 12 pack when you've got essentially a janitor's closet as your storage. A 6-pack is helpful, and I think a good way to get your brand in there, help them sell it through, help them understand how to move it and get that reorder.
I mean, that's the catch, right? Getting the reorder is the catch, but
The last kind of, point I'll make, and none of us are lawyers, but there's a lot of obvious laws that are in place that vary by state. So when you're reaching out for people, make sure you get a good lawyer because it's going to be important that you follow all the right rules.
yeah, I see people miss the whole, legal steps, the compliance all the time. And they, are waiting and waiting and waiting. They get to the front of the line. There's something wrong in the label, something missing, whatever. And they go back to the drawing board again. And it's, do it right the first time. Hire somebody to help you or consult for
Right.
you or fractional for you, high level to help you do this the right way because or else you're just wasting money, as we've said before.
Yeah. Yeah. An industry colleague who owns a wine company, he and I caught up a few weeks ago and he said, yeah, send me your one sheeter. Like, I want to take a look and just see, what you're highlighting as your expertise. And he said, I didn't know you had a master's in law. And I joked that, yeah, it's not a JD. It's a master's degree with a focus on legal aspects of business. My sister calls it my fake law degree. And he chuckled. He goes, but like, if I were going to spend 50 billable hours with a lawyer, you would be able to cut that down by just getting it organized and kind of, I said, yeah, I could probably shave off 30-40% of the hours. He goes, do you have any idea what a savings that is? But I
Yeah.
write with these pens, which anyone listening, it's that 4-color Bic pen with red, green, blue, and black. Just, yes, be super detail oriented and think about with legal stuff as well. I know it's more so judges than, TTB, et cetera, but it's either the black and white of what the law says or how it's interpreted. So think through what could be somewhat ambiguous with investor decks and contracts, your vendor contracts, whether it's your co-packer or flavor house, whoever it may be. Really just do your due diligence and be very cognizant because it's a super compliance driven, nuanced industry. So don't underestimate the headaches that come from that.
Read the fine print.
Yes.
I always tell them, read the fine print. Be careful what you're signing. Read the fine print.
Well, I think we covered quite a bit in our time together here. I really enjoyed speaking with you guys as always,
Thanks
and
for having
maybe
us.
we can do this again later on in the year and see how things develop.
Gosh, what a crazy time we are in right now. It's every day, right? You wake up to
It's
something else. It's
I
like,
would
wow.
not
we're
be in any other industry. I
Me
no
neither.
love it.
Yeah. I think we're all, you
We're
got to
lucky.
be crazy to love it, but yeah, it's the best industry ever. It needs a little love and attention right now, I think. So
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of unemployed people.
you're telling me.
But I mean, like, yeah, Caitlin's wildly tapped in with a deep network. I mean, her years of executive recruitment. So, hopefully companies recognize the value of bringing on a recruiter and the fact that they can get it done, pretty quickly and know exactly where to pluck the right people.
Yeah, thank you. It drives me crazy to see them post these jobs and they get over 400 resumes. And I'm like, this is actually when you need my team the most, is right now.
Yeah.
We just had a client. He doesn't even post an ad. He's a boomerang client. He comes back to us every time he needs to hire, doesn't post a job ad. He just gives us the job. We put 2 people in front of him. He interviewed the first one. He was like, that's it. Hired her. She's starting today. It was like, how much time we saved him. And he says, this is so valuable. I don't have time for this. And this is what you do. And it was, yeah, I wish more people had the budgets to, to really invest in their hiring because it's so important, especially with all the candidates. But I wish we could get every single person a job right now. We're doing our best.
Well, I hear Riz is hiring.
Yeah, they need me. They definitely need me. But if anybody has a connect, please connect me. I'll send you a referral fee. That's for sure.
There you go.
Employee Appreciation Day was last week, right? Saw one of those posts go up. We're all navigating together.
Yeah, for sure. Any final thoughts, Ben?
No, it's been a good discussion. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for coming. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us and, talk about what we're passionate about, what we do every day. You, Gary?
No, look, this was and always is a lot of fun. It's great knowing you guys for several years when we can sort of do these roundtable discussions. And yeah, I hope, anyone listening here, Ben and I are available, Caitlin for recruitment, where we want to see the best for the industry. We've grown up in it. We love it and truly passionate. So no, thanks. This is fun. I'll probably stay on and keep talking after you guys have closed out your browsers.
No, thank you for having us, definitely. And I think, it's not that any of us are trying to discourage anybody from launching a brand. It's just to launch it the right way so that you're not pouring a bunch of money down the drain and taking market share and then running out. So do it the right way. And I think it's really important. We love new emerging brands, right? It's very exciting. We love new imports and all the things, but you just, it's important to consult with the right people to do it the right way is all. But thank you. I mean, yeah, I think we all love this industry more than we should. And it's been our life. So
yeah, it's our life.
Appreciate you having us.
And hopefully for at least another 10 years.
Yeah.
I need to work another 10 years.
I got 20 in me, I think.
I think once you find your niche and what you do, you don't ever really retire. I think, the traditional way of retiring. I mean, I saw my father-in-law go through it and he started teaching just because he's like, I can't sit at home and doing nothing.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about being an entrepreneur is you can kind of just continue that, pick up, do whatever you want, part of the business. So with that, I thank you all. And hopefully,
Jesse.
maybe we'll regroup later in the year.
Yes, I love it.
So I will let you all get back to it and wave goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye. Have a good week.
Produced by Fedora J Productions. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week.